Hi guys, so I am trying this again. I actually recorded a nice little presentation and I got out of my QuickTime player and realized it wasn't actually recording the whole time. So anyway, welcome. Just here to do a quick review with you on using textual evidence to make inferences. This is an important skill that readers need to have, and writers, and basically just students of the world. So here we are. I know that we've already done a good bit of this year. Again, this is just to serve as a review for you. One thing you may have noticed when you went into the module is that it's set up so that you have to do things in sequential order. The reason for that is because I really want you to at least be exposed to this video some, even if you don't watch it all the way through, although I hope you will, in order to do the review assignment that you'll have following this video. It's important because in the next class, the next module, you will have a little mini test where you'll be applying some of these skills again. So kind of a big deal. All right, so basically when we talk about using text evidence, obviously we're just talking about using words or phrases from the text to help support your conclusion or your argument. When we make an inference, we're basically just drawing a logical conclusion. It's kind of like reading between the lines. And one good thing about an inference is that one thing about a good inference is that it's always supported by strong evidence, that textual evidence that we'll be practicing integrating into our work today. Okay, so I'm not going to read this to you all word for word, but as you can kind of glance through it and read it on your own, you just get a more in-depth definition of what inferences are and how we use them as readers. So it's a good skill, and a lot of times, you do this every day without even realizing that you're doing it. You look outside and you see someone with a coat and a scarf walking down the street and you think, oh, okay, it must be cold outside. I'm going to wear a sweatshirt or whatever. So, that's basically using this skill of inference as well. So when we talk about making an inference for our purposes here, there's really two key things that come into play. That's using your prior knowledge. So what do you as a human being already know about the topic, or what have you experienced to help you come up with a logical conclusion? And then obviously using that textual evidence. So what does the text say? What clues does the writer give you? And a lot of times with our practice and the little mini test, you're going to be asked to make an inference based on a picture or a video. It's the same principle. What elements am I getting in this visual representation here that's going to help me make a good conclusion? So it's putting those two pieces together. So let's watch this quick video. It's silly, but you guys aren't too cool for a little cartoon video.
All right, you guys, pull over. That's the bank's money right there. I caught you red-handed. You're going to spend a long time behind bars.
Cut! They're not going to jail. That's not in the script.
Are you serious?
Check it out. First, you leap onto their car and yell, "All right, you guys, pull over." And then you say, "That's the bank's money right there." Then I caught you red-handed. Then nothing. See, there is no line about spending time behind bars.
I guess I made an inference. Look. The alarm is going off at the bank. They're running from the police. And they have bags of cash from the bank in the car. I made an inference that they were going to jail because of what they did.
You made an inference? What on earth are you talking about?
Well, I read the text. I thought about what I know, and so I made an inference.
Oh, now I get it. Of course. In real life, they'd have to be arrested and charged. And there'd be a trial and lawyers, and before we knew for sure, they were going to jail.
What if I say, you guys are going to need a good lawyer?
Yes, that works for me. All right, everyone, we'll do it again.
Okay, so you can see actors, not just pretty faces. They make inferences. They take the information that they know, the evidence presented, make an inference. So let's take a little practice here. Look at this practice. So we're going to try to figure out what's this girl doing and maybe what else you can infer from this short passage. So it says a young girl is standing on the corner. She is wearing a bright red jacket and bright red snow pants. She has a scarf tied around her face. She is wearing striped mittens. She looks to the left down the street. She stamps her feet. She puts her backpack on the ground. She looks to the left down the street again. Okay, so what conclusions can you draw from this based upon what you know, what the author gives you? Well, first thing, it's pretty cold outside. So we know this because of what she's wearing. It says at one point she stamps her feet. That could be from cold or impatience. It seems as though she is probably waiting on a ride, a bus possibly, to school. And that maybe she's been waiting for a while because of the fact that she stamps her feet and then sets her backpack down on the ground. Good. Easy as pie. A lot of you are like, well, no duh, Mrs. H. But again, it's really just trying to hone in on those things so when you have more challenging text to read, you can decide how to pull out the details and make the inference. All right, so let's look at something a little longer. It may look familiar to some of you if you're Harry Potter fans. So I'm going to read this and you follow along. But look at the question at the bottom here. What inference can be made about Harry's abilities? That's what we're going to be looking to answer. Okay. Once Aunt Petunia, tired of Harry coming back from the barber's looking as though he hadn't been at all, had taken a pair of kitchen scissors and cut his hair so short he was almost bald except for his bangs, which she left to hide that horrible scar. Dudley had laughed himself silly at Harry, who spent a sleepless night imagining school the next day, where he was already laughed at for his baggy clothes and taped glasses. Next morning, however, he had gotten up to find his hair exactly as it had been before Aunt Petunia had sheared it off. He had been given a week in his cupboard for this, even though he had tried to explain that he couldn't explain how it had grown back so quickly. Another time, Aunt Petunia had been trying to force him into a revolting old sweater of Dudley's, brown with orange puffballs. The harder she tried to pull it over his head, the smaller it seemed to become, until finally it might have fitted a hand puppet, but certainly wouldn't fit Harry. Aunt Petunia had decided it must have shrunk in the wash, and, to his great relief, Harry wasn't punished. On the other hand, he'd gotten into terrible trouble for being found on the roof of the school kitchens. Dudley's gang had been chasing him as usual when, as much to Harry's surprise as anyone else's, there he was sitting on the chimney. The Dursleys had received a very angry letter from Harry's headmistress telling them Harry had been climbing school buildings. But all he tried to do, as he shouted at Uncle Vernon through the locked door of his cupboard, was jump behind the big trash cans outside the kitchen doors. Harry supposed that the wind must have caught him in mid-jump. Okay, so before we make our inference about Harry's abilities, we need to know there's basically 3 steps to doing this. So if you were to take a test and were asked to complete what's called a constructed response, so basically a response that's going to be more than one sentence, it's going to ask you to pull details from a passage, there's a formula to that. So if we look at this, when you answer a prompt, you're going to have these 3 steps. You're going to restate the question. So in this case, what inference can be made about Harry's abilities? We can restate that as, one inference that can be made about Harry's abilities is that he has magical powers. I just take the question, restate it into a sentence format. Next, using that textual evidence. For example, it says, he had gotten up to find his hair exactly as it had been before Aunt Petunia had sheared it off. Notice the comma to introduce the quote. We've practiced this when we wrote our essays this year. Notice the period inside the quote mark there at the end. Again, something we've practiced this year. So just keep those details in mind. Then lastly, you're going to make the connection. So you're going to explain it. It is impossible for hair to grow overnight, so there must be a supernatural explanation. Also, I know from reading Harry Potter that he is a boy with magical powers. So this would be a solid inference, a solid answer to that question about what you can infer about Harry's abilities. Because I've used the textual evidence, I've used what I already know about Harry Potter and the fact of how fast hair grows, and I've constructed a logical response. So that's the step. Restate the question, use the textual evidence, and then make the connection or the inference. Okay, so now it's going to be your turn. You're going to go to the module, and in the assignment 2, it's set up like a quiz. It's not really a quiz. It's just marked that way to make it easier for you to turn things in and for us to grade. And you are going to just kind of practice what you've learned here in this video, what we've reviewed here. And one of the things you're going to do is watch this Pixar short, Jerry's Game. Now, some of you may have already seen this before, and if you have, that's great. I encourage you to give it another look, though. It's pretty short. It's less than 5 minutes. The link to the module, I know sometimes people are having trouble getting links to work inside of the quizzes and assignments. So what I've done is on that particular question here, I'm going to include this link as a separate item in the module. It's not there yet, but if you go back to the module, you will see Jerry's game listed as a separate link. So if it won't open in the quiz, it should be able to open in that link. And I know I've had some trouble, like some people have messaged me and saying, some of these videos don't work, et cetera, et cetera. I don't really have a good fix for that necessarily, but like for this one in particular, you can always just Google Jerry's game and find a link that will work for you, or you might try opening in Safari if you're using Chrome. So you're going to tell me who is Jerry's opponent in the chess game, follow that 3-step pattern. So restate the question, use evidence from the video, and then give me your connection or your inference. Next, then you're going to read this little passage here. Again, same template with the Harry Potter example. Restate the question. Why does Karen start walking slowly at the end of the passage? You might start it with, Karen starts walking slowly at the end of the passage because, whatever. Use a quote from here. Make sure that you are integrating it with the correct punctuation. Demonstrate that you know how to do that, because you're going to need to do that for the mini test next block. And then make the connection. And then lastly, you have a multiple choice question that I covered in the video. So just make sure that you select 2 options for full credit, because there are 2 choices there. So beyond this, once you've practiced this integration of quotes and the making inference, you do have a Sadlier, antonyms. So make sure that you get that done. In your May 5th module, you'll have one last Sadlier. And then the May 7th module is when you will take your vocabulary 13 quiz. So it's coming up. But again, make sure that you watch this video first before completing this assignment, which it should make you anyway. It should make you do things in sequential order. So message me if you have any questions, and I will talk to you soon.